Simple Quilter, and I'm really excited to be here filming this video for you today. This is my first YouTube video, and it is an introductory video to tell you a little bit about how I learned to quilt and what my channel will be about. So I've been doing a lot to learn about this process. I've been learning about editing and lighting and filming, and the last component was getting my hair cut today. So I am ready to do this film for you all. Now, in 1990, I married my husband Wes, and you'll hear me talk about him. You'll also hear me talk about my two children, Jared, my son, and Amy Jo, my daughter. You'll hear me talk about those throughout my YouTube channels. They're a big part of my life. But anyway, in 1990 I married Wes, and we had been engaged prior to that. So for every Christmas, Wes bought me hunting and fishing equipment because we shared those two hobbies, hunting and fishing, and we did those together. And I really do have to say I enjoyed it. I especially enjoyed the fishing more so than the hunting, but anyway, we did those things together. But in 1992, in October or November of 1992, he took me deer hunting with my compound bow, and of course he had one too. But we went to a hunting area fairly close to our home, and we were walking out there, and we came to this tree, and he said, "Okay, now I want you to climb up this tree and get in the tree stand and sit there and wait for me to come back and get you. Now you have to be real quiet, and you have to try not to move." So that's what I did. And it was cold. It was like October, November. That's hunting season here. And so I sat there, and I had a long time to think about this hunting hobby because, like I said, I was there for 2 or 3 hours. And when he came to get me and I climbed down out of that tree, I had determined I was not hunting anymore. So I told Wes, "You got to do something else for Christmas this year, because I don't want any hunting or fishing equipment. You are not to buy me even a lure or even one bobber. Nothing. None of that stuff." So we did have a local quilt shop at that time, and he went into that quilt shop. It was called the Quilt Basket, and he purchased me a gift certificate called the Class Club membership, and it allowed me to take every single class in 1993. And I took every single class in 1993 that, of course, would fit into my work schedule. So I had a lot of different teachers, and I learned a lot of different techniques. And it was kind of interesting because back then I finished every single project that I started. I finished every quilt, table runner, wall hanging that we did in that class, in that whole class. Now, all of my classes were free that year, but of course I did have to pay for my supplies. But that gift changed my life, because not only did I learn a fantastic hobby like quilting, I made friends that have become lifelong friends. And I absolutely love spending time with my quilt friends. That gift Wes gave me changed my life for the better, and it was such a great gift that he gave me. Now, Wes is also my biggest supporter when it comes to quilting. For example, when we get ready to go on vacation, before we back out of the drive, he'll say, "Hey, you got your book?" And I'm like, "Yep, got that book." And what he's talking about is the Quilter's Traveler's Companion. And I use that book to help me know where the quilt shops are along our journey. And of course I Google things too, but I always have a copy of that with me. And he will literally stop at every quilt shop if I want to along the way. And he's really patient. Now, he doesn't always come in. In fact, he seldom comes into the quilt shops, but he does come into some of them. But most of the time he takes a nap, or he goes and fills the truck up with gas, or gets a soda, or he goes to a hunting and fishing store. So I do have plenty of time to look in shops, and I've looked in a lot of different quilt shops over the years. I do try to be considerate of him, and I try not to spend a long time, especially when the kids were younger, because that was kind of hard for little kids to do. But my daughter usually went into the stores with me. But anyway, he is my biggest supporter. Now this quilt behind me is one that I made for Wes, and I didn't make Wes a quilt for a long time because I just didn't think that he wanted one. But when I made this quilt for him, it is the most loved quilt I've ever made for anybody. He loves this quilt, and he uses the quilt. He'll take naps in his recliner, or he'll crash out on the couch and he covers up with them, and I just love that. I want the quilts that I make to be used, and I do want to refer to the title of my YouTube channel. It is called The Simple Quilter, and I do make simpler quilts. The reason I make simpler quilts is because, number one, I don't want people to be afraid to use the quilts I give them. I want them to use them, to cover up with them, to let their kids crawl around on them, to wash them when they need to, and to not feel like they just have to put it up on a shelf or put it in a pillowcase and put it inside of a drawer to be saved. I want the quilts I use to be used and loved. So I do have a tendency to make simpler quilts, and I want to be able to get them done. I work full time, and I don't want to make quilts that take me, you know, years to get done, because I want to give those quilts to the people that I love. So that is the title of Simple Quilter. Now, the quilts that I make aren't too simple. I just like the simpler patterns. I like antiques. I like the traditional type of quilting. And I always think it's important to do the very best job that you can when you make a quilt. You want your points to match. You want to use the best materials that you can afford. You want to be sure it's well constructed so that it will hold together, and so that the people you give it to can use it and they can wash them. I want my quilts to lay flat, and I want my quilts to be square. So I always try to do the very best job that I can when I make a quilt. So simple doesn't mean too basic or poorly constructed. Those are things that I do try to do when I make quilts. I try to have well-constructed quilts so that, again, they can be used and washed. Now, my YouTube channel will also be about celebrating the art of quilting. I love celebrating the art of quilting. I'm a member of 2 quilt guilds. I love to go to quilt retreats with my friends, to shop hops. I love to go to quilt shows and quilt programs. I love to read about the history of quilting and just all aspects of quilting. It's just something I really enjoy. When my husband and I go to antique stores, of course, I'm always looking at the old quilts, and I just love to celebrate the art of quilting. I've given a few programs, and I've helped set up quilt retreats and fundraisers, quilt boutiques, and I've helped with community service projects, making not blankets, but making quilts for those in our community who are in need. So quilting makes me smile. So it will be about celebrating the art of quilting also. Now, this has been a big learning experience for me, like I told you early on. So please leave a comment if you have something, you know, that you would like to ask about or comment on. Please feel free to do that. I will try to answer your comments, and hit the like button if you've enjoyed this video. I am excited to bring you more videos. I hope to upload videos on Wednesdays, so I'm going to try to do 1 a week. And if you want to join me, you can hit subscribe. But thank you for joining me. I'm excited about this, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll see you next time. This is Michelle Fox with The Simple Quilter. Have a good day.